This episode of Fuel for the Soul is powered by ASICS. Head over to asics.com and sign up for a one ASICS account. It's completely free, and when you sign up, you'll receive 10% off your first purchase. You'll also gain access to exclusive colorways on asics.com, free standard shipping, special birthday month discounts, and more.
Hi, this is Thomas with Believe in the Run.
This is Megan with Believe in the Run.
And this is Megan with Featherstone Nutrition.
AKA Feathers.
And you're listening to Fuel for the Soul, the podcast where we talk all things nutrition and hydration and how it affects performance. And we love answering all of your questions, which we're going to do today. In fact, we have 2 audio submissions.
I love it.
Which we're very excited about.
Wait, how do people submit audio suggestions or questions?
You can just record a voice memo on your phone and then email us at fuelforthesoulpodcast@gmail.com.
So if you're listening today and you're like, ooh, I wish I could be on the Fuel for the Soul.
You can be.
Yeah, you can be. And we would love to hear from you because, I don't know, it brings me back to old time radio, like shows where people called in and stuff. So I like it.
I think they still do that on the radio, don't they?
They do.
They probably do. When's the last time you listened to the radio?
I don't recall.
I listen to
Feathers?
Elvis Duran when I drive to swim in the morning.
Is that AM or FM?
I believe it's FM.
Okay.
Do they play music?
Yeah, sometimes.
What's
Mostly
Elvis
they just
Duran?
chat. You don't know Elvis Duran in the morning show?
No.
Oh,
What's that?
Kiss FM. He's awesome. I don't know.
Oh, it is FM then. Kiss FM.
Oh, yeah.
It's
Kiss
in the
FM.
name.
There it is. Yeah.
So is that kind of
it's
like a
good.
comedy show?
No, he honestly reminds me banter-wise of like you and how you banter. You would probably be entertained by him.
All right.
They just talk about random stuff.
Elvis Durant on the show. Let's go. All right. Peas
All
and
right.
carrots, are we done?
No. Before we play our first audio submission here, let's chat about our sponsor, Runway.
All right. I've been using several products from it. Meg, you just did a killer little video that they shared about the pre-workout and I can't even say biodistillation or something.
What?
You know, when you're
Vasodilation. Yeah.
That's it. Basal. See, this is why I didn't go to school.
This is why I don't talk nutrition.
Yeah, basal dilation. But it helps with that. And what that means is more oxygen's getting to your muscles when you work out. And that I didn't know. I just thought it was like a tasty little
The pre-workout you're talking about?
snack to give you some energy, some B vitamins and stuff. But apparently it's opening up my blood cells to carry more oxygen to my muscles, which will help me have a better workout.
My favorite part is they pulled that from one of our previous podcasts, too.
Yeah, I saw that. And
I thought you were saying you'd never heard it before. That's why.
Oh, no, I had.
Obviously.
And then the other thing was I've been using the creatine protein post-workout mix. And the other day I had kind of like a stomach bug and I couldn't get any food down. And the only thing I could use was that because I could sip on it. And so I was thinking that maybe that was doing something good for me. I don't know.
It for sure is. Yeah, because when we're sick and we can't eat, if we can get some protein in, it helps decrease any muscle loss. So I think that was a great idea on your point.
Awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, their vegan protein powder is probably the highest quality vegan protein on the market. So if you're in the market for a vegan protein powder, they use brewer's yeast in it, which is very, very high in leucine, which most vegan proteins are super deficient in. So it's a wonderful, like, complete protein to really help with muscle recovery, muscle growth, muscle synthesis. And then, as Thomas said, it has the creatine in it to help, stock our creatine stores, which is a type of energy system that we can use if we have enough creatine in our muscles.
Okay, so if you want to try Runway, you can go to runway.life, that's RNWY.life, and use the code FEATHERS15 for 15% off your purchase. Okay, very exciting times here. Let's play our first listener question.
Wait, before we get there, I'm watching the video and Feather's shirt says Mama Needs, but I don't
What do
know
you
what
think
Mama
it
needs.
says?
Yeah, what's at the bottom there?
I may have been at physical therapy before this. Mama needs a run.
Oh, I thought I was going to say a bagel.
That'd be great too. I don't know.
Yeah. All right.
A run and a bagel.
How is your running going?
I was just telling Meg before we started recording, which actually maybe people want to hear this update too. I've been seeing the same physical therapist for, oh gosh, almost 4 months now. And he said today, he was like doing a full assessment. He's like, I think we can say we're officially healed. And I was like,
Oh,
cool.
that's
6
amazing.
months later. Yeah. But
Well, wait. Didn't we think it was going to take 6 months?
well, if it was, then we were correct. I kind of didn't have a timeline in my head because I just was like, I want to get healthy. And if I put a timeline, I felt like I'd be disappointed. But yeah, so I'm still just running 3 days a week, but I'm up to like 7 to 8 miles each of those days. And I'm hoping
Are some
to
of
get
those miles
to
feeling
9.
easier?
No, but here's the other thing. He has me doing crazy strength stuff and these like blood flow restriction cuffs on my quads when I lift, and my legs just feel trashed, but that's good because they need to get stronger. But and then I started this like reformer Pilates class. So between the two things, my legs just feel like very heavy and weak all the time, but it's because they're getting stronger is what I keep telling myself. So yeah, runs still feel like those heavy legged runs, but I don't think it's like a fitness thing as much. I think it's like I'm doing a lot of like strength training in my lower body right now to try to get healthier. So we'll see. Maybe that'll work. Maybe it won't. We'll find out in the fall.
All right. I was just going to say, I want to check your insanity. Have you signed up for any marathons? Yeah.
Well, I have a deferred bib to Chicago from last year since I didn't run it, since I went to Berlin with you guys instead. So if I've told Meg, if I'm ready to train come, July, August, like hard, like back to old Megan train. I mean, modified, right? Because I'm not where I used to be. But then I want to run Chicago. But if I'm not in the right health or space to train hard, I'll probably just wait and do New York for fun with Meg. Yeah.
Either way, it feels like a win.
I know.
So,
I agree. Totally agree. I like that there's options and defaults if things don't.
That's not as
progress
insane as it. I thought you would get the okay from the doctor and you'd immediately go to your keyboard and be like,
I just feel so far from where I was, and I know I won't be there forever, but like the thought of even being like, let's run a marathon in 2 months, that feels ridiculous.
Right.
Like I think I've gotten a little wiser as I've entered my 40s. At least I like to think I have. Maybe not. Who knows?
That's good though that you're in that mindset, because I think if you were so gung-ho on hitting a time in the fall, then it just like adds pressure, and you would probably make decisions that maybe weren't the smartest.
You can always join me in the back of the bus.
Everybody move to the back of the bus.
Yeah. Now, all right. So Megan, you're keyed it up. We got this exciting new feature. Let's hit it.
Okay, this is from Elise.
Hi, team. I'm Elise. I'm from Canada, and I love your podcast. You guys are my favorite company to keep on long runs, so keep up the good work. Now, my question relates to some advice that my husband received about carb loading for what will be his first marathon. His good friend, who is a pretty experienced triathlete, told him to eat low carb for a week, starting around 2 weeks out from the marathon, then do a long or hard run about a week before the race to burn out his glycogen stores, and then to eat high carb for the week prior to his marathon to build those glycogen stores back up. This doesn't really fit with most of what I've read about carb loading before, which essentially boils down to eating a certain amount of carbs per kilo of body weight for the 2 to 3 days prior to the race. I've definitely never heard of the idea of like burning out your glycogen stores prior to a race before, and my brain can't even really generate a hypothesis as to why that would be physiologically beneficial. But maybe I just haven't read the research. So I'm a little worried that if my husband does try it, it might do more harm than good. And I was wondering if you could help me understand if there's any research that our triathlete friend's advice might be based on, or what he might be kind of getting at with that strategy, and whether or not it might be worth trying. Thank you so much for your help.
Okay, before you answer,
I've heard this theory before.
what a beautiful voice, though. That
Yeah.
was a fantastic voice for radio, or I guess we're on the radio now. But for the podcast, Elise, man,
She's Canadian.
I loved it, and I like that she
Hey.
asked about kilos, because I have no idea how to do kilos.
Yeah, I love it. So we have really good news for you, Elise. You don't have to live with a low carb husband for a week, and he doesn't have to deplete his glycogen stores before he carb loads. So this is definitely now an outdated science, but there was some science to this. So I actually would be curious if their triathlete friend, how old he is, or if his coach is a little bit older. So just like she said,
Shaking stick, get off my lawn. Don't eat carbs.
right? Don't do it. So the whole theory of carb depletion, just like she said, is literally trying to get our glycogen stores in our muscles to zero before we carb load. So there was a study done in the 70s which looked at depleting carb load stores, and she nailed the protocol there. It was like eat low carb and then do just an exhaustive workout about a week out so that your glycogen stores are literally nothing left, and then do the carb load a few days after that. And so their thought was that you could, quote unquote, super compensate our glycogen stores. So we all have a certain capacity of how much glycogen we can store in our muscles. That's why if you've ever gotten on the website and put in your height and your weight and it spits out a number of carbs for you, that's all based on estimated capacity that your body has to store glycogen. So they used to think that if we depleted it first, we could actually exceed that level, which is funny, right? There's only so much space to store things that we know now, right? So, but that was the theory back then. So they would do exactly, what Elise said, and then do their carb load. So then there was a study done in the 90s. So still quite a while ago, honestly, right? I know sometimes I think the 90s was like yesterday, and then I'm like, that was 35 to 40 years ago. So that's where the research was done to be like, okay, do we seriously need to completely deplete our glycogen stores in order to, quote unquote, super compensate them? And this study found absolutely not. A 2 to 3 day carb load with, 8 to 12 grams of carbohydrate per kilogram of body weight does just as well, if not better, than the whole depletion method. And part of the problem was when you look back at that 1970s study, the side effects were GI issues, fatigue, stress, and exhaustion. So we all know how we feel when we taper. Some of us feel a little crazier than others, but if we're adding GI issues, fatigue, stress, and exhaustion into a taper when our body is supposed to be resting, just sounds completely counterintuitive. So for me, even if this method in 5 years, they're like, wait, we were wrong, we do need to do this, I still am not sure that I'd recommend it, because I just don't think that's the best state for us to be in when we're tapering and trying to rest, right? And then too, immunity is another thing. We know that like low carb diets decrease our immunity, then we don't want to get sick before our race. So I personally think this whole depletion thing needs to go at the wayside. So everybody just keep on keeping on and do a 2 to 3 day carb load and you're good to go.
The carb depletion sounds so miserable.
Yeah.
For starters.
I think I've talked about this before. The whole like train low carb and compete high was popular when I first started running, and I tried it one time on a long run. I've never felt worse in my life. I was in tears by the end. I was confused. I got lost. I felt horrible. I was like, I was like very confused, like disorientation. It was awful. I was like, never again.
Because your brain's not working because you don't have carbs.
Before we worked with you, I know I didn't eat enough, and I used to just feel like crap on any run over 6 miles, and I was just like, this is just horrible.
Yeah. Carbs, baby.
Now you know. All right. This is from Kate.
Hi, Feathers, Megan, and Thomas. I heard on the podcast that you were looking for voice memo questions, so I'm going to send mine this way. So I just got my blood work back, and the first thing I have to brag, because I followed your recommendations, Feathers, I have always had trouble with my iron as a woman, as a vegetarian, as a runner, and I have been doing Hemoplex and just following the optimization recommendations rather than like taking it every day. So I take it on an empty stomach mid-morning, and my ferritin was 67, and I think the highest it's ever been before has been like 38. So thank you so much. I've been feeling great, and now I know why. So my question, though, was about my HDL. So it was a little lower than they wanted it to be. That's the good cholesterol. And I exercise a lot as a runner, so that's not really something I can tweak. But I was wondering if you had any suggestions in adding in or removing things from my diet to get that HDL up to the, I think, above 60 level that they want it to be for women in their 30s. Thank you so much. I love your podcast. I've learned so much. My marathon time has improved, thanks to you. So really grateful for everything you're providing the community. Bye.
And that was another great one, Kate.
Yeah, that's good. Also, congrats on the ferritin. That is a solid number.
67.
What is yours normally?
Yeah.
That's about the high. I think I get a high 60 on the good times, and then I started out when I was working with Megan at like 20.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
Yeah.
because you think of iron as something that you get from meat products. I know that they do some stuff with beet and stuff like that. The Hemoplex, is that a vegetarian iron supplement?
Yeah, it is. The one I have two sitting here. The one that's not would have heme iron in it. So like they make this Fiazol by Fiera that has heme iron. So that obviously isn't vegan or vegetarian because it comes from red meat. But yeah, most are plant based.
HDL is interesting because I feel like we're always concerned about the LDL being too high.
Yeah. I thought this was a good question for her to ask. Hopefully, if you're listening to this, you've had your cholesterol checked in your life. And if you have not, you need to. It's good to know a baseline when we're healthy. Also, cholesterol is very genetic. So understanding if we have like heart health history in our family, poor heart health, I should say, it's good to know, right? When we are at our healthiest, what do our numbers look like? I think it's really important. So if you haven't gotten it done, get it done. So we've got total cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, which is our quote unquote bad cholesterol, and then HDL, which she is asking us questions about. So HDL is actually a protective molecule. It actually helps kind of clean up some of the plaque or extra cholesterol in our bodies and then take it to our liver so our liver can get rid of it. So I kind of like to compare it to like scrubbing bubbles, right? It's like taking away the grime and taking it to our liver to get rid of it. So it's really good that we have
Why
that
did they
high
just give it a
HDL.
different name? This is the most confusing thing. LDL, HDL. Let's just change it and like, why can't we just call it good cholesterol, bad cholesterol?
No.
Well, people do.
No, because
Yeah.
it's like when we see it on tests, it's like, let's stop with this naming
Well,
convention.
Here's the way that I was taught to remember it is HDL is happy and LDL is lousy.
Loser.
I don't know.
That's good.
Loser, or it could be the loser. Yeah. So HDL is incredibly genetic. There's a couple different genes that if you have low HDL, it's probably likely that there's like a genetic component to that. And then the other thing about HDL is it's really hard to increase it. There's some things that we can do to decrease it, like smoking. So let's not do that. But we want to make sure that we're doing things to increase it. And just like it sounds like Kate's fairly educated in this, exercise is the number one thing to increase our HDL. So I've gotten it done every year. And it was funny when I started running marathons, it like jumped up 20 points and then it just kind of hangs there. Right. But so activity definitely is going to increase it. But, if you're already exercising daily, a marathon runner, a half marathon runner, whatever it may be, that's probably not the focus, right? You know, we probably, as she said,
Did you
can't
say
do
a
whole
hot
lot
marathon
more.
runner?
Half.
Oh, half.
She's probably hot too, though. I mean, we'll just give her that credit. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, what does your looks have to do with it?
Like, what's Kate look like? So that's one of the things is, and like, so if somebody is listening that has a family member that's trying to increase HDL, the recommendation is like 30 minutes of like moderate to high physical activity a day is supposed to help increase it, right? Which most of us are probably doing. But if we're trying to help someone who's not active, that would be, you know, a suggestion there. And then other things which we already know for heart health is like try not to eat as many trans fats, saturated fats, right? The fat that comes from animals, that's not great for it. And then we also, I know smoking significantly decreases it, but hopefully us runners are not doing that or vaping. And then moderate alcohol. So excessive alcohol intake can decrease HDL as well. So just kind of evaluating those habits. And then there's like mixed research on whether omega-3s increase HDL or not. Some studies say they do, some studies say they don't, right? So we've talked about omega-3 around here because it's anti-inflammatory and it can help with muscle recovery. So it certainly couldn't hurt. So if she's not, you know, taking an omega-3 supplement might be a good idea.
Speaking of which, I've been taking those Pillar, because they're a sponsor now, the Pillar omega-3s. And I don't know. I felt like, I don't know what was the combination of what made my training session this time feel so good. But I between those and the protein after it and the working out and stuff, there's something to it.
Yeah, I do. I take omega-3s for sure. Like I think we just don't get enough through our diet, even if we're eating fatty fish, chia seeds, and flax seeds to get the benefit. But they're not cheap. It's not a cheap supplement, which is a little bit of a hindrance. But
Yeah, I was taking those. What's the one you recommend? The Sport
Nordic
2-time?
Natural Sport.
Yeah.
Nordic Natural,
Yeah.
Yeah, I was taking those for a long time when I was in peak marathon training, and then I kind of stopped and I forgot to get back to them, but maybe I need to add them back in this next
Or
training
just
cycle.
grab some of the pellet ones. I got
Yeah.
a tub of them.
Yeah, I mean any omegas. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's what I kind of got off the bandwagon last fall too. And then once I got hurt, I was like, okay, what haven't I been doing? Let's do it all again.
Back on it.
So originally, one of the problems that Megan came to you with when we first started talking was Megan was having cramping. And we figured that out through the hydration, even though we thought we were hydrating correctly and doing everything right. Turns out we were missing it. And once you figured that out, now you haven't had that issue again, have you?
Not like I did.
We're still in the mystery phase of why our LDL is always high. Both Megan and myself are always high.
I've kind of figured it out though.
What do you think it is?
Well, I made a comment on our interview with Aaron Azar about how I went and got my blood checked after a rest day, which I don't normally do, and my LDL was lower. And every time I have a workout the day before or a double the day before I go get my blood work done, my LDL is always really high. And multiple people reached out to me and said there's evidence to suggest that that could be related. It's just you're doing a workout or a hard effort too close to getting blood drawn affects the results of your LDL.
It affects results of a lot of things, but it's hard to like find that day to get blood drawn in your training. Yeah. So,
okay. Our next question, these are all GI related questions, comes from Hannah. She said, thanks for the great advice, which was super helpful when training for my first marathon in Manchester on 27 April. She's clearly a Brit. It was a much hotter and sunnier day than expected, and I was feeling nauseous on the day from mile 10 onwards. I managed to keep taking fuel until I took a gel at mile 22, and it swiftly made a reappearance, and I couldn't take on anything else during the race. Thankfully, I still finished. Is there anything I can do to help with nausea and keeping my paces up on a hot day, or do some people just react badly? I trained with taking gels every 30 minutes and also took a carb/electrolyte drink and poured water on myself at every station.
So she's saying she threw up the gel?
Immediately.
sounds like it. Yeah.
I have had the problem of before. It's just, I don't even know if it's the gel or just a gag reflex of, it's not like I'm totally nauseous. Just like, it's like, ugh, I don't want it. Yeah. And I wonder if that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like Hannah did a lot right. Like a lot right. And maybe there is actually not a whole lot she could have changed. But sometimes knowing why something happened allows us to come to that conclusion for ourselves. Like, okay, I did do great on the day, right? If she wasn't having issues until mile 22 on a hot race, checkmate. Like, that's fantastic, right? So nausea while we're running is typically related to the intensity, the duration, how long we're out there, and then your core body temperature. So weather, right, and hydration are all wrapped up in that. So it makes sense that when we're at marathon intensity, we don't practice at that. I have a lot of clients that come to me that have either nausea or vomiting in a marathon that we can never replicate in training ever. And a lot of that is we don't train for that duration at that intensity. So sometimes things pop up on race day that we've never experienced. We're not quite sure how to handle. So I think, again, she did everything right in training by fueling and hydrating the way that she described. And it was likely just that if it didn't hit till 22, right, she'd been out there for a long time and her intensity had been pretty high. And if it was a pretty hot day, yeah, okay. I was like, should I make that up? No, she said it was hot and sunny, which is going to make the feels like even hotter. Then your core body temperature increases. And when our core body temperature starts to climb, our stomach just does not empty well because we just don't have good perfusion to it. So that whole delayed gastric emptying is very, very common when we get too hot at the end of a race. So we saw it in Boston, the massive amounts of vomiting at the finish line, right? And if there's that much fluid that can come out of our body, like our stomach was not emptying for many, many miles out there, right? And that's not uncommon at all. If you feel nauseous after a race, if your stomach bothers you after a race, if you're somebody who barfs at the end of a race or after a race, it's because our stomach has not been emptying because of exactly these factors. So that's likely what happened here. So
can I throw in one other like factor? Gels when they get hot are gross. And you're out there 22 miles, that thing's pressed up against your body heat, and it's warm outside.
It's gnarly.
Yeah, that's going to, like, squirting a hot thing of goo in your mouth.
Wait, I have a question about the stomach emptying. So if that's not happening, does that mean you're not getting the hydration or nutrition?
Yeah.
You're just sloshing it
So
around.
that like you might as well not even take anything.
At that point, maybe not. Yeah, like we
Okay.
said, like the whole carb receptors in our mouth.
Yeah.
Like we could put the gel in and swallow a
Spit
tiny
it
bit
out.
or spit it out or swish some Gatorade and spit it out or Lucozade. I don't know what ratio was at. But yeah. So, I mean, this is a hard one and a tricky one. And sometimes all those factors combined in a way that is unexpected to us. And there's not a whole lot we can do about it besides, like you're saying, maybe not take that gel at 22 or slow down, or if there's ice on the course, to put down our sports bra or t-shirt or whatever we're wearing to cool our core body temperature. Something like that might help, but a lot of times that's not available at marathons.
Okay, so say you're late in a marathon like that, 22 miles. You got 4 miles left. And you probably took your last gel at least 4 miles ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
So where's that put us? Like 16 or 18?
18.
Mm-hmm.
18 miles in. And that's the last gel you were able to get down.
Mm-hmm.
So you're basically doing about, I don't know, because you have that gel. So technically you're doing it on vapors at the 4 miles to go.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely gonna quote unquote bonk from a fueling
Yeah,
perspective
you're
there.
slowing
So
down.
yeah, it's a roll. Of the
Okay, I was
dice.
going to ask you, can you just like muscle through that, or is it going to affect?
Try. I mean, personally, I would slow down. If I started to get that nauseous or started to throw up in a race, I would slow down. I would try to get my exertion down. I would try to get my heart rate down. I would try to cool down a little bit.
And does that
and
mean
just
trying to get another gel
sacrifice
down?
the time. Yeah, I probably would. Yeah, if this was me, I probably would have tried to slow down the pace, like try to get myself to empty, and again, it's not like we can
So
will
what
our
would be
stomach
some
to empty,
techniques
but-
to get a gel down at mile 22 when you're feeling nauseous? Would it be waiting till a water stops so that you can kind of mix it in with the water and swallow it together? Or like what would be some techniques?
I would, again, like I think the biggest thing is to slow down, to get your heart rate down, to try to get your body a little more comfortable to be able to utilize that fuel. So that would be the first step. And then the second step would be, I've had this happen at the end of races. It's like sipping that gel rather than taking the whole thing down, like tiny bits at a time, just to get a little bit of fuel into your body. And again, have that repeat hit of the receptors in our mouth before it even hits our, GI tract. So how long it takes you to get that gel down would be much extended. Yeah.
So trade-off here. You're not able to, you want to go in for a PR and you're running as hard as you can. You don't want to slow down, but the gel's going to make you throw up. Or knowing that that's going to bonk you later or just slow you down a little bit later, do you take those 10 seconds, 20 seconds to kind of consciously take down that gel in the small bites, maybe stop and walk, get it down, and know that 10 seconds, 20 seconds, you'll be able to make that up with the energy now that you're going to have towards the finish? Like, what's the trade-off for you?
I mean, that would be, I think that's a game time decision that each of us have to make in the moment, and everyone's probably going to make a different decision, but I would absolutely, I don't like to feel nauseous or uncomfortable, and I absolutely am petrified of throwing up. So I would I would slow down. I would sacrifice a time and a heartbeat to finish happy and be able to celebrate afterwards and not feel ill, So I think it just depends on the person. Yeah.
Yeah, I stopped being able to take gels after like 14 in London, and
Ouch.
I didn't know that.
I have to share. I talked about it.
Yeah.
I have to share my race photos with you, Megan. They are
I can't wait.
hilarious.
I haven't seen them.
Like the I showed them to you.
Oh.
Thomas is living two
God.
lives right now.
But yeah, so it's a rough end of a marathon when you can't take in gels. But I'm with you, Megan, where I'm like, I slowed down and I tried to just get through it as best as I could. Okay, this is from Brittany. She said, longtime listener, first time writer. I just finished my second marathon and was feeling really strong until I started to have GI issues and had to make 2 emergency bathroom stops, one at mile 18 and one at mile 20. I followed your carb load calculator and also ate basically 0 fiber the day before. Hydrated the night before and felt like I fueled and hydrated well throughout the race. Never hit the wall. Took a gel every 30 minutes, carried a handheld with scratch, and also hit a number of water stops too. I should also add that GI issues aren't super uncommon for me, but have been less of an issue over the last year or so. I've tried switching up what I eat the night before a run and the morning of, and I can't nail down what is causing it. I can eat certain foods one day and be totally fine, and the next week it ends up with a porta potty stop. Any ideas what might be causing this or things to troubleshoot? Thanks in advance. Love the show. and all the helpful advice you all give.
Oh, that'd be so frustrating.
Yeah.
I know. And I really do wonder what's going on. I literally pulled these questions a couple days ago, and all the top 10 questions that came in most recently were GI related. And they just published this massive review article on GI issues in runners that I had read. I think I posted on it like the day before. So I was like, this all just feels crazy that this is all hitting at the same time. So I was like, we should probably continue to chat about it. But this research study in particular was looking at the different factors of what causes GI issues. So they looked at all these studies, and they were trying to figure out, like, okay, what evidence is this definitely causes issues, this might cause issues. They graded all the evidence and stuff. And so what they found, which we already had said, was exercise duration, intensity, and environment are 3 of the hugest reasons, right? So again, back to what we said for Hannah up here is the intensity of a marathon, right? We can't practice that. So sometimes that's just the nature of the beast, and unexpected things happen on race day that we didn't notice, were going to happen in training. But hers sounds like it's unpredictable, even in training. Like, she does one thing and it happens and then it doesn't. So some of the other things that they looked at in this study was, what are the blaring things that is known to cause GI issues is NSAID usage. So that would be like ibuprofen, Aleve, Advil,
They cause
Motrin. Yes.
IBS?
So they damage our GI tract. So if we're taking them fairly frequently, we are much more prone to having GI issues. So we also know that a lot of runners have aches and pains and might be self-medicating with ibuprofen. So that would be one thing. Like, check that box, Brittany. Could that potentially be a piece of why you were having issues sometimes, not other times? It was a little bit unpredictable, even if you were eating the same things. And then the big other bucket, right, is probably what's the least able to be defined. So it's quote unquote individual characteristics. So it was people with like pre-existing GI conditions like IBS, Crohn's, colitis. Obviously, there's more prone to have issues if there's already an insult to our GI tract, whether we know it or not, right? Maybe she has IBS and doesn't know it. Then we're more likely to have unpredictable GI issues when we're running. Some of the other things are like food allergies, intolerance, and then 2, like our overall health of our GI tract can be impacted by an illness, antibiotic usage, any type of supplement usage, right? So there's things like that maybe we haven't accounted for. I know I've talked about it. Meg's talked about it. Like, when you take antibiotics, your stomach is not the same when you're running, right? It kind of changes all the microbiota in our GI tract, and we're more likely to have issues if we have taken them, not just at the moment of a race, but even like a month or 2 beforehand. Some people continue to have issues with that. So there's a lot of those little factors that maybe she can look into. And then the only other thought would be really kind of honing in on her specific sweat rate and sweat composition. Like, is she really maximizing the fluid and sodium to help make sure she's absorbing it all, getting what she needs to decrease that GI tract risk? So that's a lot of things. Those are kind of the things I like to check with clients
weather?
who come to me. Yeah, environmental conditions. Yeah, is
because
like
I feel like a hot marathon's gonna mess up
sure.
most people's system anyway.
Yeah.
Like you were talking about the stomach not taking
not
in,
emptying. Yeah. And 2, we know when our core body temperature increases, we don't get good perfusion to our GI tract, and we actually cause damage to our GI tract. So some people are more sensitive to that. Like, so I'm always blown away when people have like a heat illness and they had no GI issues in the race before it, and the heat illness gets them. Like, I'm like, my GI tract's going to stop me in my tracks before I ever have like a certified heat illness. But everybody's different, So I think we play around with different factors and see what we can do to help manage it. But as we'll see with these questions in this massive research study, like, GI conditions are super frustrating for endurance athletes, and it really can be hard sometimes to nail it all down.
Yeah, especially because you can have this perfect, amazing training block and even a perfect race weather day, and just something doesn't sit right or something goes wrong, and that's frustrating for sure.
I mean, that's the toughest thing about a marathon is that you and I really do think we should start looking at them as a holistic from the time you start training to the time that you finish, because it really is. You do all that work, and you're happy and you're doing stuff, and you're probably having good days, bad days. And it all rests on how you're going to feel about that build on one day. And that day can be a warm day. It can be, you could have a GI issue, you could have anything. But like, I am getting, maybe it's because, as I get older and the more of these I do, the more I just appreciate being able to show up on the day and be there with people and experience the run and see what's going to happen.
Yeah, I will say, knowing how hot it was going to be for you guys in London and knowing that Meg was not feeling her best health-wise, I was like super proud of both of your mindsets of just being like, it's going to be what it's going to be. Like, we're happy we're here, but because it is. I think that's really hard. Some people do, or they're like, I trained this hard. I want this day. And maybe it's because we are engrossed in this for a living that we realize like that just doesn't happen all the time. But I do still see so many people stuck in, but I put in the work. I should be able to have this day. And to be able to just be like, well, it's not going to be that day, I think is just such a awesome outlook and way to look at it.
It wasn't easy. So that I didn't really know what my paces or stuff were going to be for the marathon. You know, I knew what we trained for, but the coach called and talked to both Meg and I, and he's like, it's going to be warm. And he gave me my paces to go out at. And I was like, wow, that sounds really slow. And then I was like, I'm going to trust him and just do it. And I'm glad I did, because I even slowed more towards the end. But like, I was like, oh, wow. I felt great for 85% of the marathon. I felt really good. And it wasn't until those later miles that the heat and stuff just really started getting to me. But I know that if I had gone out faster, that I wouldn't have felt as good as I did, as long as I did. Yeah. And then I didn't really understand. I live with Megan and stuff, but I didn't understand, like, she's so good at hiding and so good at being tough, even through, like, I've been with her when she used to run the marathons with the leg cramps and get back up and finish and be first place. And so I've always just seen her as so tough. So I didn't really expect her to be struggling the way you did in London. So that was kind of like a surprise for me.
I was dying out there.
I know. I was like,
Poor thing was on her last leg after Boston and went out and ran a 3:08. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. It's like her dying is a 3:08,
right,
which,
right.
Whatever.
So, yeah, we were kind of talking about like Brittany's specific GI issues at the end of a marathon, but we can also.
Is this Brittany?
Yeah. I think we can all relate to GI issues during races at all points and all times. So talk to us about maybe what in general we can do to avoid them.
Yeah.
And tell Brittany to stop dancing around with knives, even if they're fake.
Brittany, biatch. I think my kids are home from school now. You got to be careful. Okay, so if you are worried about GI issues, if you have had GI issues, here are some things to check the box on, make sure that you're doing to set yourself up for the best chance of not having GI issues. So hydration is huge. So it's not just our hydration during our run. We need to go into our run hydrated. If we go into our run dehydrated, forget it, right? As we lose fluid out there, it's not going to be pretty. So go into your run hydrated, which we've talked about before. When it's hot, we could do a hyperhydration with more sodium and fluid the night before. And then 2, we need to have a goal for how much sodium and fluid we should be taking personally per hour, depending on the weather, our own sweat rate. Maybe we even go to sweat composition. Everybody's going to look a little different. Don't be afraid to tinker with that if you haven't yet, because maybe you just need more sodium and it's going to change things. So kind of play with that, especially as it gets warm. The second thing is eat before you run. I can't tell you the number of people that tell me I don't eat before I run because it's going to bother my stomach. This particular research study we keep talking about actually found that we're more likely to have GI issues if we do not eat before we run. So make sure you're finding something that sits well in your stomach, that's
like
easily
a cheeseburger?
Digestible. Not a cheeseburger. No, thank you. The graham crackers reign supreme over here. The other thing was adequate carbs during your run also helps decrease GI issues. Again, people seem to forget to fuel at the beginning, and then they take a gel and it causes an issue 2 hours into their run, and then they blame the gel, but really it's that they didn't take anything early enough. So this particular study, actually, it was interesting, I've never seen this before, was saying to try to take 1 gram of carb per kilogram of body weight per hour. So, we say anywhere from like 30 to 100 grams of carbs. So most people, kilos are probably in there somewhere. But that was just another interesting fact from that study. Gut training. So we need to practice with our fueling while we're training, or our GI tract isn't going to know what the heck to do with it on race day. So make sure that we're using the fuel, the frequency, all that kind of stuff in those long runs. Another big thing they kept saying was a cooling strategy. I would think this was totally off the wall if I only ran marathons, because I'm like, we can't grab ice unless you go into a med tent. Like, it's kind of hard.
They had
to
it on the course.
Cool. Did they really in London?
Yeah.
That's nice.
I put it on
yeah.
my hat.
And
That is really
freezing
nice.
cold showers
Oh,
every
that is
5K.
nice.
Oh, this
Yeah.
just ruined my question for feathers after this, but go ahead.
Okay. So when I did that half Ironman, there was ice that I put down my tri-kit or Meg's tri-kit every mile, and I could not believe how well that worked. So if you have access to anything that helps cool your body, specifically ice, that's obviously going to help on a hot day. Decreasing fiber a day to 2 days before, so there's less roughage left behind to cause an issue in your GI tract. Avoiding NSAIDs, like we talked about before. And then there was that one study we've quoted on here before about wearing compression socks, and that maybe it decreases GI issues if you really want to throw everything at it. Those are some of them. Yeah.
All right, so here's the question I had, but I might have just figured it out.
Mm-hmm.
I am a salty sweater. Most of the time when I get done with my long runs or whatever, I have that white crust on my gear. I wore all black, so normally it's easy to see on my hat and the stuff. And this marathon I finished, and there was no salt on me.
Mm.
And so, I was thinking that maybe that meant that I hydrated and salted properly, but then I would think there'd be more salt out there.
Yeah.
Then I was like remembering, I was putting ice in my hat,
Yeah.
and then I was running under sprinklers. Maybe I was
Washed it off, yeah.
washing the salt
Yeah.
off. Yeah.
Yeah. That, and didn't you guys say it was really humid too?
97% in the morning.
Oh, jeez. You guys got screwed. That's awful for a lot.
I still
Anyways.
love the marathon.
It
I
is
would
the
go back
best.
and run that again. As a matter of fact, Megan and I both
Yeah.
signed up for the lottery.
I did too.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I love that race. I'd go back in a heartbeat, even if it was
Yeah.
hot. So, yes, the salt that you see on your clothes is when our sweat evaporates. So the fact that it was humid, you might not have had a chance for it to evaporate, right? And
Yeah.
then, yes, that for sure, that was washing it off of you, the water. Like I noticed at Boston, it was very warm, but it was dry. Like there was very little humidity and did you notice the salt streaks on people as they finished? And it was
Yeah.
just because it was able to evaporate while they were out there because it was so much
See,
drier. So
I felt like the year before we ran Boston was a lot warmer, and we saw a lot more people, or you said you saw a lot more people at the finish line throwing up and that kind of stuff.
yeah.
I felt like they had really good conditions for Boston this year,
They
especially
did.
after what we saw in London.
Yeah.
Even though it got a little bit on the warmer, it never, I didn't think it felt hot.
It was the fastest Boston in history, right?
Yeah,
The
it
average
was.
time was like a 3:43 or something.
All right.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
Yeah. But I think people went out really hard because they
Yeah.
were like, it's the perfect day.
Sure.
And that also causes it, as we just said, that's probably why we saw so much barf at the finish, right? It was the intensity piece. So I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, I was saying that I wasn't in the crowds last year because I was running, but they were telling me that it was much worse.
There was
The
a
year
lot
that-
of people passing out. It was like
Yeah.
wheelchair after wheelchair after wheelchair last year. Plus, I think people were off the course DNFing in med tents earlier. So I don't think you even saw as many people, you know?
Yeah.
I heard it was carnage out at, well, you guys were out there on the course too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was rough.
Yeah.
Another hot marathon. Check the box.
Yeah, I really,
Shocking.
guys, if you want to run a cool marathon, do not run one that I'm running. Because I bring the heat,
Yeah.
literally.
Yeah,
0
you
out of
do.
10 stars.
Oh, gee. Like, I was like, okay, I ran Boston. It was hot. And then London was perfect last year. So
Yes,
I'm
it
like,
was
okay, I'll
beautiful.
run London. And Boston was
Sorry.
perfect this year. And London was hot. I'm like,
Yeah.
these people.
I was like okay with it because I was like, there was like 2 strikes against the race for me. It was like I was sick and on antibiotics and it was hot. So I was like,
Yeah.
F it.
You're like,
It's not-
whatever.
It's just not my day.
Yeah, yeah. It's probably better
Yeah.
than it being a perfect day and you not
Right,
being
that's-
able to perform the way your fitness
that's my
was.
thoughts.
I
too.
get so
Yeah.
mad at myself if
Yeah.
we have perfect weather and I'm not doing well.
You're
or
not
I
in
get,
peak
I'm like,
physical condition.
what is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Aw, yeah.
And then you know everybody's going to have a good day. And you're like,
Oh,
man.
boy.
Oh man.
I get there and the Megs are like, I finished in 1 hour and 15 minutes. I'm like, geez, that's great, guys.
On
Congrats your
rollerblades,
new
downhill.
PR and contract with Nike and stuff.
Okay. I think we'll wrap this one up now. But as always, thank you all for listening. And again, if you have a question we haven't answered and you want to hear your voice on the show, we
I
would
want to
love
hear
it.
your voice.
So you can go ahead and record a voice memo however you want on your phone is easy and send us an email at fuelforthesoulpodcast@gmail.com and we will play it here on the show.
Yeah, and if after you ask your question, you want to add a joke in or something like that, we
That'd
will
be
judge it and you'll know whether it was a good joke or not if it makes it into the podcast.
Yeah.
I like
So.
that.
Also, if you have an accent, definitely audio.
I think we
files.
should start randomly. Maybe we need to do a reprint of some Fuel for the Soul shirts. And if you do an audio question and we air it on the show,
get one?
maybe you get a Fuel for the Soul or Featherston Nutrition, something or another.
Okay, T, start designing the shirt, and we'll do
Yep.
it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Peas and carrots.
Bye.
Bye.
What would you do?
What? Caffeine?
You're going to have to cut this. So I should just continue to eat fatty meats and mayonnaise on everything?
Ew.
No, Thomas.
I do. I love a chicken salad. I like a egg salad, any kind of salad. Blick, lick, lick.
That's not terrible. I can't see his face right now, but I can only imagine what just happened.
That noise was so weird and so gross. Oh my God.
His laugh is like diabolical.
Oh. Yeah,
All right,
stop.
yeah.
Cut. End.
All right.